What's up, everyone? Welcome, welcome. How's everybody doing? Jeff, good to see you. Ron, excellent. All right, for those of you who are just joining in, I should probably hold off for another minute. All right, there we go. Dre is here from Cali. Anthony McSee from Hong Kong. Glenn B. Oh, man, always hate those Friday night shifts. Glenn, glad you're here this week. Dan, what's up? Paul is here. Excellent. Cool. All right, everybody. As always, for those of you new to joining in, welcome. First of all, going to talk about chords tonight, and I've actually broken this up into 2 weeks of this, okay? Because I realized that we could go a lot deeper with this, so I'm going to go a little bit deeper next week and start expanding on all of this chord stuff, but a lot of basic stuff here, but I also threw in some cool stuff, hopefully to keep more of you veterans engaged with it. All right, Michael Lang is here. Excellent. Good to see you. Duke from Lakeview Heights. Awesome. Ron from Vegas. D-Tube. What's up? James from Syracuse. Jim Gregory. Excellent. Jim King, as always, from Ontario, representing. Hey, how's it going, Jay? Good to see you. Danny and Lee. All right. Andre from Quebec. Excellent. And Ron from Boston. Rick Sticks from Ottawa. All right. We've got an EVH homemade, Jeff. That's awesome. What's up, Dan? Harry? Welcome. For those of you new, same time, same place for an hour on YouTube here every Friday. And have we got an echo going on? What's going on? Huh, interesting. I wonder what's up. Is there an echo? No echo here. Okay. Maybe someone is messing with me. Sorry. Russ, first time joining from Vegas. Welcome. Excellent. Yeah, this is a Martin. This is one of the Guitar Center exclusive Martins. It's a little more stripped down and affordable than some of the higher offerings. Thanks, everybody. No echo to the rest of you. Okay, that's great. Denver, Zane, what's up? Welcome. And Dan is from, what was that, Ottawa? Portugal, Rui. Hello there. Napa, Susan. Excellent. Cool. New Zealand, Harry. Atlanta, David. Welcome. OH, good evening. Jeff from Cincy, that's where you are. Okay, cool. New York City, Mid-Rider, 335. Maybe that's it. Patty from San Jose, excellent. Oscar from New Zealand. Cool, everybody. Awesome turnout tonight. Thank you so much. For those of you joining in for the first time, there is a handout. Expand the description below this video and download the PDF. Okay, because we're going to go through some stuff. Pennsylvania, John. All right, excellent. PJD from Vancouver. Love it. Jim, cheers, my friend. All right, Paul, give it to us good. I like that. Audible Headache, good to see you again. Excellent. All right, we got the echo sorted. Excellent. Lee. Houston, Darren, welcome. Steve from Denver, Kenneth, good to see you again. King 50, excellent. Okay, Marcos from Brazil, awesome. Okay. All right, everybody. So we're going to start right from the beginning for those of you who are in the basic category. And hello from Mississippi, Keith, welcome, welcome. So a lot of this is going to be straight ahead, at least for the beginning, but I'm going to throw in just some extra stuff, hopefully some stuff you haven't seen, or at least try to explain some things that you have seen but maybe don't know what they are, okay? Talking about chords. So like I said on the outset, we're going to do this again next week. I'll have a whole different set of examples and exercises, and we'll go a little bit deeper into some different types of chords. But for now, where do we start? Major chords, right? So let's make sure we know our major chords, and good place to start is the open chords. Dave from Nanaimo, awesome. Cool, cool, cool. All right. So we've got the open G chord. This is the Mel-Bay. I call this the Mel-Bay G, right? Where you've got the open D, open G, and open B strings. Third fret of the low string, second fret of the A, and then the third fret of the top string. Okay? Now, how do we build these chords? How do we think of a major chord, right? What we need for a major chord are 3 notes from the major scale: the root, the third, and the fifth. So if you know a major scale, for example, I'm starting in the key of G. Oh, Craig, welcome from Melbourne. Hope everybody's staying safe there. There's my G major scale. I go to the first note in the scale is my root. Second note, third note. That's my third, right? B note. Fourth, fifth, D note. Say, so in the key of, for the G major scale, right? G, B, D. Those are the notes you need to create a G major chord. The root, third, fifth. And they can be found in the scale, right? So if we're talking about a major chord, we get those notes from the major scale, okay? David, we're getting to that. Don't worry, okay? All right, so we've got a G, a B, a D, another G, another B, and another G up top. Okay, that's how we arrive at this chord shape. And of course, you know your C chord. We always start with this at first. And again, if you think about the C major scale now, making a C major chord, okay? You've got C, E, G, C, E, G, C, E, okay? That's how we get that voicing. D chord, okay? Okay, so there's D. Next note is F sharp. That's the third, I mean. The third note in the scale is F sharp, right? Fourth, fifth. Fifth is A. There's a D major chord. So what do we need? We need D, A, D, F sharp. So we've got some notes making that D major chord, okay? Now, if we're in the key of G, right, as Dree is already foreshadowed in the comments, we're talking about a 1-4-5 chord progression. And where do we get the 1-4-5 from? We got these Roman numerals. And what those are telling you are chords that we have gotten out of a key, okay? So in this case, we've chosen the key of G. So if I make a G major chord, okay? Well, let's back up a little bit. The key of G, I'm going to play a chord progression in a key, and I've chosen the key of G. So I need to refer again to the G major scale. Okay? So the first note of the G major scale is a G note. Okay? So if I make a chord with that as the root note, using notes okay, from G major, I'm going to get the 1 chord. Okay, so that's where the 1 Roman numeral comes from, is we've taken a chord, we've harmonized the notes to make a chord, and the root of that chord is the first note in the scale of the key we're playing in. So that's the 1. Okay, so that's the 1, they call that the 1 chord. Now, where does the 4 chord come from? Now here, I'm not talking about building the actual chords. I'm talking about where to find the root of the chords that we're going to play. So 2, 3, 4. My 4 chord, the root is going to be C, because if I go up the major scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, I end up on a C note, okay? And the way that it works in a major key is that your 1, 4, and 5 chords are always major chords. Okay, we'll get into the minor chords in a bit, but got a major chord here. The 4 chord is the root of the 4th of the scale of the key we're playing in, which is G. That's 4. And then the 5th note is D. And that's also a major chord, so that's the 5 chord in the key of G. That's where we get this 1-4-5 type of sound. So if we put it into a chord progression, the example I have in 1A goes like this. switch to C, and then D. You can repeat that a bunch of times. Practice your chord changes, right? We talked about this a lot. If you want to practice chord changes, okay? It's always better to go slow so that you can keep steady time, right? Because if it's still taking you a little bit, you know, to get those fingers onto those chord shapes, it's better to go a lot slower. And then try to get those fingers in position and keep that timing nice and smooth. That's what you're going to practice. Okay, that's where your timing is going to get good, right? And that's where you're going to get a smooth strum pattern. Okay, and also we're, of course, practicing those fingers, getting them to change as quickly as we can. All right, so there's our first example. Super simple 1-4-5 chord using open chords in a major key. All right, now let's look at a little variation. I think we had a comment alluding to this particular version of the G chord. Okay, this is the one where we've got the 3rd fret on the B string as well. Ah, yes, thank you, Jody 1. The double dots, the repeat sign, right? So in these exercises, you'll see it sort of in bracket. If you think of it in brackets, right? The 1A is 2 measures. And there's sort of a dark line with the semicolon, and then at the end of the second bar, it's framed by the reverse image of the colon. It's not a semicolon, it's a colon or double dot, and the dark line, right? That means repeat, okay? All right, so here's a G chord as well. And you don't really name this one any differently. Okay, I'm taking that first G chord that we had, and I'm just simply replacing the open B string with the D note, 3rd fret of the B. And this one sounds really nice too. I mean, listen to the difference between the two. Okay, the second one with the higher D note, 3rd fret of the B, is still a G major because we still have a B note in the chord down low. That's the major 3rd, right? So we still have G, B, D. So we still have those notes in there. So it's still a G major chord, but yes, has a brighter, more focused sound, because what happens is the 3rd in the chord, right, will dictate whether the chord's major or minor. So that's sort of the color note. That's the note that sort of rubs against the roots and fifths. The roots and fifths sound nice and you know, really in sort of in phase with each other, which I don't know if that makes any sense or not, but you can hear it, right? If I take away this B note, and we'll see this chord a little bit later as well, right? We've got an open A string that I'm muting. So now I've taken the B completely out of the equation. It's just G's and D's, roots, fifths. You can hear that even that has like a super focused sound compared to when I add the B. Okay, so these are all just musical colors. There's no right or wrong. These are just little alternatives that we can do, okay? So we've got this, yeah, the AC/DC G, right? Which is just a power chord, okay? So we've got G, okay, so we've got, now, here's a little variation on the open C chord. Basically take a G chord when you're fretting that D note, 3rd fret of the B, right? And then just move the lower notes up a string set. So now I've got the 3rd fret of the A, 2nd fret of the D, open G string, but I haven't moved up top. All right, you've heard this in a million songs, right? Going from G to this one's called a C add 9, okay? Sounds really great, used in tons of songs, right? Okay, so what's going on here that's different than, here's a C major, here's Here's a C add 9. So it has an extra note in it. Yeah, every rose has its thorn, exactly. We've still got C, E, and G. So that's still a C major, but we add in a D note here. There's a G up top, but we've got a D note in there. So what that is if we go up the scale, okay, up to C, and we keep going. If you think of C as the 8, right? We go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's the D. That's where the add 9 comes from, because it's in that higher octave. Okay? So we're adding a 9th note to the C major. That's all that means. C add 9. Okay? And yes, Dree, you've got, what's nice about that, going from G to C add 9, is that you've got these notes staying constant. Exactly. Same idea. Those notes are sort of droning through, right? So in this example, I'm going C add 9. Okay. And at the end, Anthony, I'll get to your question in a sec. At the end, classic move right here on the D chord. I've also got the 3rd fret of the high string. So I've still got this going, Dree, right? We've still got the 3rd fret of the B and high E string, but we've moved to a D chord. And I'm doing 1 strum on that, and then resolving to the full D major chord. So when I replace the 3rd with the 4th note right beside it, that's your D sus4, exactly. Okay? So that's quite a nice little variation of just a straight 1, 4, 5, but using just some different sounding shapes. Okay? Makes sense. Now, no 7th, so add 9 as opposed to C9. Well, yeah, exactly. So if there's a 7th in the chord, then that changes the quality of the chord, right? And we have to call it something else, right? And add 9, we're just simply adding 1 note onto an already existing chord, okay? In this case, C major, right? So yeah, if you put a 7th in there and start adding notes on top of the 7th, it gets a little more complicated. You start getting into extended chords, and exactly, you could end up in, depending on what you've got, with a C9, right? Okay, yeah, Zeppelin, you know, right? Right? All right, cool. So hopefully, oh yeah, and just one more thing there. I saw Dree talk about the E minor 7 as well. Okay, which also works. So if you think about a 1, you know, we're talking about 1, 4, 5 right now. But a great chord to add in is the 6th chord. It's a very common thing to add into a chord progression. And in this case, in a major key, the 6th chord is a minor chord. In the case of the key of G, that's an E minor. Thank you, John. I appreciate that. All right. But what you can do is turn that E minor into an E minor 7 by holding those drone notes, as Dree was talking about. Okay. Add in the E minor. Sounds really great too. So you get things like Ed Sheeran and all that kind of stuff. Right? So I've still got the D and G notes, 3rd fret of the top strings, but the lower notes are an E minor. So this makes an E minor 7 because it's adding in a D note to the chord. But it sounds really great when you're running in the key of G. Oasis chord, right? Yeah, Wonderwall, right? I can't remember the I can't remember the chord progression for Oasis. So there you go. Okay, so that's 1B. Now, of course, Audible, I appreciate that. That's awesome. Thanks, Jeff. I appreciate it. 1C. Okay, here we go. Bar chords, major bar chords. All right. All right. So, of course, we have open chords. Oh, yeah, Anthony McSee, you missed the A7 in the key of G. It would be a minor 7, right? That works great too. Sort of a minor 7, but there's no minor third in that. So it's a little bit different, but that can work too. Okay, yeah, absolutely. Cool. Okay, so exercise 1C. So we're talking about open chords. Let's talk about bar chords. All right. The bar chords are hard on the acoustic. Yes. Russ, that's awesome. At the end of the lesson, can you tell us if these live lessons are located on Guitar Tricks? No, they stay on YouTube. Okay, so they're on the Guitar Tricks channel. All right, so subscribe to the Guitar Tricks channel. You'll get notified when these lessons come up, when new videos get uploaded, or just search in YouTube for the Guitar Tricks channel and look through the videos, and they're all up there. Okay. Yes, so Audible. This is the advantage of the bar chords is that they're movable, right? Like we learn our open chords and they sound great. We've got some open strings with them. It's typically what we learn first, but then we got to move on to the bar chords so that we can start moving up and down the neck, play in different keys, and all you have to learn are the shapes, right? You can move up, you know. I learn a G major bar chord, right? 3rd fret bar, 5th fret of the A and D, 4th fret of the G. Okay. Of course, remember with bar chords, right? For having trouble, especially on the acoustic, you know, if you got to get those fingers on there and experiment and just check every note to make sure you got something. If you got this kind of thing going on, you got to make adjustments. Usually it's curl your fingers, right? Experiment with where the thumb is. Experiment with how you've got your index finger on that. And once you figure it out, once you figure out how to get the right amount of pressure and finger position that everything's ringing out clearly, you got to try and go for that every time. Shake it off, try and get there every time as quickly as you can. If it's a little bit hard down the neck, start up the neck a little bit. Okay, the frets are a little bit closer together. Okay. Yes, got to get that thumb in there for the vice grip. All right, so the major bar chord shape, this is what they call, for the G, they call that with the root on the low string, okay? And it's movable, so if I want to make a G sharp, I just move it up 1 fret, and boom, right? You can't do that with an open chord. It doesn't work. You got to have everything fretted, okay? Yes, Ron, try this. If you got your strings, the string moves under the knuckle, okay? Try pushing the finger up so that you get more of the flesh instead of the crease where the knuckle is. Okay. Another thing to do is maybe try turning your index finger on its side a little bit, right? That might give you just enough to get in there. Yeah. Another thing you could do is use this and push the guitar towards you a little bit more. Just give you that last little bit of oomph, right? Cool. All right. So we got G major. That's our 1 chord. We're going to C and D. So we have bar chords with the root on the A string. Okay. So a little bit tough to fret with all the fingers. Okay. David, good question. Bar is more difficult on acoustic because of action. Typically, an acoustic will sort of can have higher action. It's a lot harder to adjust, but you can get the action down on an acoustic if you get a proper setup, okay? So I would recommend that. You know, you can get low action on an acoustic, but it really needs a qualified, like a tech guy because they'll do a combination of the nut, you know, bring down the nut and bring down these saddles down here. They can file those things down to make the strings a little bit closer to the fretboard. So it's not something that you can easily do yourself, but a tech can do it. So highly recommend looking into a proper setup. If you're acoustic, it just feels like, oh my gosh, this is crazy, right? Right, which is one of the advantages of learning bar chords on electric guitars, because typically it's a little bit easier to get that going. Okay, so always a little more difficult on the acoustic. Yeah, I mean, it gets a little tight up here, right, Ron? So you kind of have to weigh. Like, I feel like a good spot to try and get the bar chords going is in the 6th and 7th fret. But it totally depends on the guitar. You start really getting up here, and that's tough, okay? What's up, M. Dixon, or Dixon from Chicago? Excellent, awesome. There you go, Harry, +1 for take it for a good setup, okay? All right, Anthony McSee, hard to mute high E string on the shape A bar chord. Hard to mute the high E string on this, A-shaped bar chord, yeah. It is, so yeah, this is sort of the way that I play these chords. So now we're talking about the root note on the A string, 5th string root, or a root 5 bar chord. In this case, for C major, you've got the 3rd fret of the A string, and I'm just barring down on the 5th fret of the D, G, and B. Okay? Now, how to figure out how to mute the high E string? Well, the first thing I would try is, instead of barring straight down, okay, well, first of all, Ron brings up a good point. If you can make it happen, that G note up top is in the chord. Okay? So if you can get your fingers in there and bar down on the 3rd fret, okay, you've got it. Now, I didn't tab it that way because I typically play just to the B string and I mute the high E string, like what Anthony's talking about, okay? And what you could do is just sort of curl your index finger to just be on the 3rd fret of the A string and sort of off of the high E string, like that'll mute it. Do you see if instead of barring straight down, you can just sort of put the pad of your finger on the A string and then just lightly keep that index finger on the high string to mute it. Another way is to you can get your pinky or your ring finger in the right position to kind of mute it that way, or get it out of the way entirely so that you can get that up top. So there's a lot of finicky stuff on with that one. You just have to sort of will the fingers into making it happen a little bit, okay? And what's up, Peter? Thanks for joining. And so now this is a movable major chord shape. So I can move it up 2 frets to get the 5 chord, which is D. Okay, so playing it with bar chords, now you're practicing bar chords. Right? Cool. There you go. Good one, Audible. I like that. Rock the arm a little lower. Yeah, absolutely. Whatever little tweak you got to make to kind of make it happen, you sort of have to practice it a little bit. Figure it out, experiment, practice it a little bit, and try to get it consistent. Eventually, this will all get built in with enough, work on it enough and enough and enough. It'll all burn in. Okay. Yes, so low E, David. Low E is the low string, closer. We call this the low string because it's lower. If you think of a piano keyboard, it's on the left-hand side, and it gets higher as you go up. And so the high string will be the thinner string up top. I also call it the top string, high string, low string. Okay, this is what we also number the strings 1, and the 1 is up here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And the 6th string is the low string closest to your chin, right? That's how we do it, okay? All right, so to up it a notch, 1D, and man, I'm still in the first example and we're a half hour in. Crazy. I know I can talk about this stuff all night. Okay, so here's a G chord that is basically made out of a C major chord, open chord, but turned into a bar chord. Okay, so I'm barring down on the 7th fret from the 5th string or the A string all the way up. Then I've got my pinky on the 10th fret of the A, 9th fret of the D, and 8th fret of the B. This is a G major chord. Okay, so what you'll find on the guitar is that you can play bar chords in every position. Okay, so you can play this chord progression anywhere on the neck. You're not just constrained by, you know, like here's the G major or here's the G major. Here's a G major right here. Okay, so it's a little bit of a tough grab, but once you get it, it's super useful. Okay, so I've got that one, and then going to a C chord. I'm just showing you an alternate version of it. This is basically the C major bar chord. Okay, with the root on the low string, root 6. Okay, but I'm not going to play the low E string. So I'm sort of positioning my hand a little bit more so that I've got my index finger on the top 2 strings barred down. Okay, so really the lowest note on this is the 5th in the chord. Right? What's up, Brady? Thanks, John, for the kind words. Danny, couldn't you mute the high E string with your strumming hand? That's kind of tough to do because a lot of times when we're strumming, right, like we're strumming all the strings. So you can work on not strumming the high string. That's a good thing to do. You can practice that, right? Just stay on one chord and just watch your pick and sort of train it to just, right, strum to the B string. Yeah, but as far as actually muting the string with the strumming hand, it's kind of tough. I don't know, maybe you could curl your pinky down there and do that. I guess you could kind of do that, but that's a little bit finicky, we'll put it that way. What's up, Sophia? Yes, we are back. We are back to recording videos. In fact, I've got a latest Wings video went up this week. I was in Southern California last week filming, yeah. So we're back to doing songs. They're back to fully filming. So there'll be more stuff coming up. All right. So getting back to this G, and then of course this version of the C chord that is, okay. I'd love to make some John Mayer videos. We are at the mercy of the publishing companies, as you know. So I don't get to choose which songs we get to do. All right, so always a good thing to do. You don't always have to do the full bar chord, right? You can take parts of it. So in this case of the C, I'm going from this G, okay, and then back to the G, okay? Sorry, G, then to the C. Crazy. And then the D chord. So I've got a different D chord shape here. And what did I do here? This one. Okay. Cool. The half bars are super useful, right? From the 4th string all the way up. That's a useful one. 5th string up, right? Cool. All right, so I'm talking about a D chord here, and I'm barring down on the 7th fret, D, G, and B string. I add the 3rd of the chord on the 9th fret of the A string. That's your F sharp. That's the 3rd of the D chord, and then using my pinky to get the 10th fret of the high string. Okay, so I'm able to play a 1-4-5 chord up the neck using these different bar chord shapes. Right? Just as an example. So that's something you could work on, right? Pretty cool. I hope everybody's hanging in so far, okay? Can't see the guitar. All right, sorry about that, Brady. All right. Let's talk about minor chords a little bit. Okay, so we'll show you the basics here. Minor open chords. which you will see minor chords as lowercase Roman numerals. 1, 4, 5. If you're in a minor key, okay, the 1, 4, and 5 chords are all minor chords. All right, so sort of parallel to the major key. So I've picked A minor. What's up, Frank? Welcome. Thanks for jumping on. That's awesome. That's awesome. Copperhead. Good stuff. Incredible. Good, good, good. Got to use it. It's a great chord. Okay. So now we've got A minor. Open A minor, open A string or 5th string, 2nd fret of the 4th and 3rd string. Aloha, Sid. Thanks for jumping on. Maui. Love it, Maui. 1st fret of the B string, high open E. Okay? 1, 2, 3, 4. There you go. 4 chord would be D minor, right? Because if you look, you go up the minor scale from A, or I'll go down here. 1, 2, 3, 4. So the root of your 4 chord is the D. So D minor is the chord we're looking for the 4 chord in a minor key. And then, of course, E minor. The next step up from D is E. And you've got those open chord shapes. So for D minor, you've got the open D, 2nd fret of the G, 3rd fret of the B, 1st fret of the high string, E string, right? E minor, low open string, 2nd fret of the A and D, open, top 3. Why don't we play a low E in A minor? It's in the key. Or would it be like an add 3? No, Andre, you're correct. There's an E in A minor, right? You've got A, E, A, C, E. A, C, E spells A minor, okay? So you could add in that low E note. But one of the biggest reasons we don't use it is that those lower notes added into the chords sometimes make it sound a little bit too muddy, right? And if that's what you're going for, that's totally cool. You're free to use this, right? Now, you don't have to add any notes to it, Andre. An E note is, in fact, in an A minor. It's in an A minor chord already, so you don't have to. But the question is whether or not, why we strum from the 5th string up. And that's because it just generally sounds like, when we were talking about that G chord, it sounds a little more focused and a little less muddy, right? You add in that low E, and you can. And, I'm not saying that's bad, because that might be something that you're going for, right? But, just a sound thing, right? If you cut that off, maybe with my thumb, right? Right, Jody. Generally you begin the chord with the root note, but a lot of times we add lower notes onto the chord just if it's something we want to, have a different sound, right? For example, I don't have it as part of this, of my example, but as part of the handout, but a C major chord, sometimes they add that low G onto it. And that's a little less muddy than the A minor. And sometimes they're going for that, right? So that would be like a C/G is what you would call that. So sometimes you see that C chord with a lower G added to it. It's just a sound thing. It's if we're going for the sound, then go for it. If that's what you want it to sound like, then great. Awesome, right? So it's the same thing. I can talk about the D minor chord for a second. Okay? Our root note is the open D. But a lot of times we will add in the open A string. Now, an A is also in the D minor, right? D minor is D, F, A, right? So there's an A in a D minor chord, so I can use that open A string. And a lot of times we add that in. Now, it's a little bit higher in register, so maybe it's not quite as muddy, and maybe we like the sound of that. It's a little thicker, right? Versus it's just a sound thing, right? So that's what we're going for. Cool. All right. Yes, the open chords are not portable to play in the different keys. So let's go to bar chords, minor bar chords. Here's your A minor, right? Root 5, A minor, 5th fret. You want to bar down. You're adding the 7th fret of the 5th and 4th string. Okay, and again, when you're working on bar chords, just get that finger in position. Okay. Jody, I'm not sure which chord we're talking about. Is there a reason you seem to prefer using your pinky rather than the ring finger? I don't really think about it too much, but sometimes when we add embellishments onto chords, you got to think about what fingers are free. Oh, you mean like this versus this. Whoops, I can't even fret it. Not sure why that is. I've never even analyzed that before. So I don't know, comfort. Maybe I just learned it that way and it stuck. Now that's right, audible. Yes, the open chords become movable if you've got a capo, right? Which is a awesome one. Now for the G, I do use it when I'm doing it like this and using my pinky. That's usually because sometimes I want to add in the ring finger on the D note, right? Sometimes. But even if I don't, I can do that. But a lot of times I'll do it this way. And that'll give me a sus on the G chord, right? If you're using the pinky, ring, and middle to get like that open G chord, that leaves your index finger to do some embellishing off these notes in here. So sometimes it is intentional, other times it's just the way I've learned it, and I just go to it without thinking about it. So it just depends on what chord it is. All right, back to the minor bar chords, right? A minor, and then on the root 5, you've got D minor. Same position, root, barring down on the 5th fret from the 5th string all the way up, 7th fret on the D and G, 6th fret on the B string, okay? There you go, D minor, and up 2 frets, E minor. And you can also think about your open string sometimes, like if you've got an E chord up the neck a little bit, you can add a little bit of thickness onto it with your low E if you want. Right? So, very simple, 1, 4, 5 in a minor key with bar chords. Okay, cool. All right, so then 2C, exercise 2C, I'm giving you, some sort of sparser voicings that use some open strings that sound really cool. And they end up adding notes to the chord that give it a little bit of character. So the first one, 8 for A minor, is we're adding a B note to it, okay? So I've got A, C, E up top. That makes A minor, but I add a B to it. A minor, add 9, right? Okay. Love that chord. Sounds really nice. Sort of haunting a little bit, right? In the minor context. And so you've got a similar thing for D minor here. Okay. Once again, adding a 9 to it. You don't have as many notes making up D minor on this one, but it sort of infers D minor. So you've got open D string, 7th fret of the G, 6th fret of the B, and then the open high E string. And then for E minor, you just go 7th fret of the A, 5th fret of the D, and then all open strings. And so you've got sort of just these different sounding minor chords that are kind of cool, right? You can put that into a 1, 4, 5 in a minor key. Sounds a little bit like Hey You, right? Pink Floyd, Jody, right? Cool. All right. So just some, just sort of some things where showing you maybe some ideas to experiment around with a little bit. So let's talk about, can we get the same chord workshop for the electric? Yes, John. So I thought I'd do all this on the acoustic this week, but we're going to do a volume 2 next week, and I will move to the electric for it. Okay. So, but I try to make it transferable to electric and acoustic. Okay. Do you always have to include the root note in the chord? Richards, good question. No, you don't always have to. Particularly when you're playing in a band or playing along with a track, for example, with other instruments. If you've got like a bass player, for example, he's usually playing the root. So a lot of times you can get away with playing chords without the roots in them, right? And just sort of outline the chords on top. So yeah, you don't always have to do that. There's no strict rule on any of this stuff. You can kind of imply chords without using all of the notes that make up the chord. Okay. And in fact, a lot of times we have to do that on guitar because we don't have enough fingers, right? If you start getting into some bigger extended chords, you can't possibly hit every note in the chord, or it's very difficult to do that, right? So yeah, you can get rid of the fifth. A lot of times you want to, you know, depending on what you're doing, like you kind of want to have the third in there, right? Because the third's going to determine whether something's major or minor, right? So sort of that's kind of an important one. But then sometimes you don't want to imply a third. And sometimes you just want to play root fifths. And then we talk about power chords, right? And I think who was talking about the power chord using their pinky? Brady. I do the same thing. I learned power chords with the pinky. You were saying you don't do that. So I kind of go back and forth, but kind of my default is always playing power chords with the pinky, index and pinky. But you kind of can't do that if you're going to start going kind of the blues thing, right? So there you go. Ron, I like that. That's a good one. Okay. So yeah, you can imply chords all over the place, and it really helps when there's other instrumentation happening. But if it's just you and a singer, you may want to have those roots in there just to sort of hold it down musically, right? Just provide a steady foundation for a vocalist, or if you're singing, we would probably choose to not play some of these more economical chord voicings and play like full bar chords or full open chords with roots, right? Because we need to fill in that sound as much as we can if we're the only instrument. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Dominant seventh chords. All right, so the next section, section 3, we're going to talk about 7 chords. And there are 3 types of 7th chords, right? There are major 7th chords, minor 7 chords, and we've got dominant 7th chords is what we were talking about. Sorry, I had a little bit of a brain explosion there. But dominant 7th chords are like your regular A7, D7, E7. These are open chords that we usually learn right when we're playing guitar, okay? When we're starting. And so that's what I've got here in exercise 3A. Now the formula for the open chord, for the, yes, thank you, Audible. The dominant 7th chord is that it is a major chord with an added minor 7th. Okay, it's a very specific chord formula. It's a major chord with a minor 7th added onto it. Okay, so what you get is sort of this bluesy sound, which is why it's used all the time in blues. Okay, there you go. Yeah, the tritone. We talked about that last week, right? Cool. Okay, so open A7, you've got the open A string, 2nd fret of the D, open G. The G note is what makes it, is the 7th. That's the flat 7th or the minor 7th that we're adding onto an A chord. Ooh, major minor 7. Yeah, I'm not sure about that one. I'll have to look that up. I don't think that sounds, what we're talking about is dominant. Dominant 7th. And then as soon as somebody says dominant, it means major 3rd, minor 7th. And then you're rooting 5th. Okay? Now, 2nd fret of the D and B strings, and then open A, open G, and open high E string. For the D, we take that D note and we move it down to the flat 7. We two frets down from the root gives you a minor 7th or a flat 7th. So that's a C note. And then we've still got open D string, 2nd fret of the 3rd string, 2nd fret of the high string, right? E, take an open E major chord and just release the open D string. The D note added on to an E major will give you an E7. Now, dominant 7th chords are not written with, it's not written E dominant 7th or A dominant 7th. It's just written E7, A7. If you don't see a major or minor 7 before the 7, it is automatically a dominant chord. So you got to think, okay, major 3rd, minor 7th. Okay, bluesy chords. You can even think of them just as the bluesy 7 chords. Okay, so here's your example. And yeah, we changed the groove on this one to be a little more bluesy. So we've got a sort of a swung groove. So I'm going to add an upstroke here. Just to get into a little more of the bluesy kind of thing, okay? Cool. All right. So on to 3B. Jazz likes the major 7s. It does. We'll get to it. Not in this session. I'm running out of time. I might have to pick up this session next week after this. We still got lots of stuff to go through. Anyway, okay. Dominant 7th bar chords, right? So now let's look at A7, 5th fret. Root on the low string, so a root 6, dominant 7th chord, looks like the A major without the pinky. Okay. Now we've got a D7 voicing here, bar chord shape, 5th fret bar from the A string all the way up, 7th fret on the D and B string. Okay. Right? Great voicing right there. I love this voicing because you can add in the sus4 onto it by just moving the pinky up 1 fret on the B string. Right? Now for the E7, the 5 chord, I've added this voicing. 7th fret of the A, 6th fret of the D, 7th fret of the G, 5th fret of the B. You might recognize this as an open C7 moved up to an E on the A string at the 7th fret. Super useful voicing right here. Okay, so check it out. I'm playing a 1, 4, 5 dominant chords in the 5th position, all centered in the 5th position, which is great, right? There's no shifting needed here. Whoa. I always do that when I go too flat to the fretboard. My ring gets in the way. Okay. Little alternative here. You can add your pinky onto the 8th fret of the B string onto this A7 bar chord shape, and it exaggerates it even more, that bluesy kind of sound. And if you go between the 7th fret and the 8th fret, Rui, I like that. It's funny. Okay. Cool. So dominant 7th bar chords. Love to be able to move those around. So I'm going to show you some different voicings for some 7th chords that sound pretty cool. And I'm still using A7. Okay, so instead of using the open strings, I'm barring down at the 2nd fret of the D, G, and B string and adding the 3rd fret of the high string. Okay, now that is the 5th in the bass here, but this is an A7. Okay, it's got all the notes you need to make A7. But what's really cool is that it's movable. Excellent, Patty. I appreciate that. Awesome. Yeah. Rewatch. Okay. And once you learn a new sort of cool voicing on a chord, you can move it up and down the neck and, you know, just use the same voicing if you want to, right? Like for a 1, 4, 5, 7th chord, right? My root is here. It's on the G string, second fret of the G. So to make that a D7, I have to think about where the D note is on the G string. And that's there at the 7th fret. And then the E is up here on the 9th fret of the G. So you got to move it up there. Okay? Right, here's another cool voicing for D7. Okay? So if you think about, in the previous example, we had that C7 open shape. And if you move it up 2 frets, that gives you D7. You can play D7 there. But what if I forget about the root note, the low root note, and now add the 5th fret onto the high string? Okay, the root's here on the B string now. And it gives a totally different sound. Like versus. So pretty cool coming out of. And then for my E chord, using the E note, 2nd fret of the D, 1st fret of the G, 3rd fret of the B, right? What's up, Jefferson? Thanks for joining us. Rock chord with embellishments, exactly. I always think of, those kind of chords, right? A little bit funky for those, that A7 shape. But look at this E7 shape. I'm just doing from the D string all the way up, and that would be like a full E chord, but with the 3rd fret of the B string added. But I'm just thinking of it from the 4th string all the way up. Thanks, Nikki. Thanks for joining. Makes sense? So just some different voicings there. All right, I'm going to keep plowing through here. We got a couple minutes left. Everybody's hanging out. I love it. Okay. Exercise 4, I've got the rock groove. So now we're incorporating some power chords and some different things. And so I wanted to show you some different things to think about chord-wise. So the first one is just a straight A power chord, 5th position. So I've got the root on the 5th fret of the low string, 7th fret of the A and D. Straight up A power chord, and I'm doing an 8th note groove. So just 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now I'm going to move to an F, but I'm going to do a stretchy chord here. 1st fret of the low string, 3rd fret of the A, but 5th fret of the D string. And this is called a 5-2 chord. It's basically a power chord, right? Like you've got F and C, the root and 5th, but you add a 2, which is a G note up top. Yeah. Okay. Awesome, John. I look forward to it as well. Thank you. Okay. And it just gives a really cool sound. These are sort of popular chords in, sort of rock, 90s rock. Right? And then to just the regular G power chord. Yeah, Foo Fighters for sure. Just gives it that open kind of sound, right? I apologize that I wasn't thinking about this stretch. This stretch is pretty crazy, but you can practice this up at, like, let's say, an octave up. I probably should have went an octave up. Up here. So 8th fret of the A, 10th fret of the D, 12th fret of the G. Thanks, Alonzo. I appreciate that. Okay. Then a G chord. And then we're going down to the open A power chord. That's the open A string, 2nd fret, just bar down on the D and G. And this last part. All right, right, so check out these shapes. All right, I'm going to the C chord, a C sus2. So it looks a lot like the add 9, except instead of having that E note in there, I'm muting the string. So I'm curling my finger that's holding the C note on the 3rd fret of the A string around the open D string. Okay? Sounds really cool. So it's like what we were talking about, right? Like we've got a major 3rd here, an E note, if we do the add 9, and it has a certain color. Thank you, Susan. Right? If I get rid of that, it's just all roots and fifths and the 2, the sus2. So it sounds much more focused. Pretty cool. All right, now if I move that down to the 2nd fret, I'm going to keep the 3rd fret of the top 2 strings, but I'm coming down to the 2nd fret. I'm going to curl that up so I've got the open D string. Yeah, absolutely. Try these chords on upstrokes, Chad. Absolutely. Don't stick with just the strums that I've suggested. Experiment with any strum pattern. It's really, this workshop's all about the chords, right? So you know, that kind of thing, right? Right on, Ron. Go Golden Knights. Love it. Hockey fan. Love that. All right, so this will be the final chord of the night here, and then I'm going to pick it up next week. Okay, so we'll have the same handout next week. We'll pick up the rest of it and go from there. Okay, so this is a G/B chord. And it's basically this G chord with the D note, 3rd fret of the B string added, but we're not using the root note. We're not using the low string. And so the purpose of this is when you've got this progression going on, that gives you some voice leading. It gives you the chords walking down back to that A chord. So it accentuates that. Instead of going to the full G, you know, right? Which you could do. That's a totally acceptable sound. I'm just saying if you want to accentuate, you can go. Okay? So this chord is a G/B, and you'll see that all the time used from, let's say, C chord to the G/B to some chord. It's kind of an A chord. Now I'm doing a power chord. It could be a minor chord, whatever you think. All right. Hey, Steve, what's up? All right. Chords are always a big bag of goodness. 2 or 3 lessons. Okay, Chad. Well, you're on because I didn't get to the rest of my stuff. So we'll have it ready to pick it up next Friday. Okay. Yeah, man. Well, rock chords, right? They sound really good with distortion because they're focused, right? Like you're sort of getting rid of all those color chords that sort of rub against all the other notes. And so on an acoustic, it'll sound really clear and cut right through. It's like Pete Townsend always did that on acoustic. Played like sort of those focused power chord, you know, not a lot of thirds and stuff. And just great, just really cut through. So so cool. Gardner Berry. All right, we'll see you next week. Excellent. Big bag of goodness. All right, now I got you. All right, everybody. We had a great turnout tonight. I super appreciate everybody jumping on. And thanks for all your questions, and thanks for hanging in. And yeah, we'll keep going on chords until we get through all sorts of cool chords. All right, that sounds good. All right, well, thank you, King 50. I appreciate that. Thanks, Anthony. Appreciate it. Yeah, everybody, take care. Have a great weekend. If you're here in the U.S., Memorial Day weekend, have a great time. I hope it goes well. Have a great week. We'll see you next week, everybody. Appreciate you jumping on. All right. We'll see you later. Cheers.